All serial killers want to win. They choose victims they can kill successfully. Pat Brown. Love, like people, can be fickle. It can last, it can falter, it can be easy or hard. But it still requires a bit of effort, dedication, and loyalty. When things get rough and people find themselves unhappy in their relationship, some will work on it with their partner. Some will leave. But to some, leaving is the more difficult choice. Marriage, tangled lives, dependencies, there are so many reasons that leaving might be harder than staying. But some, they look for the quick, easy solution to their problem, the Band-Aid fix. Divorce is rarely the easy path, but it is a better choice than the one Robert Spangler made. Robert was born on January 10, 1933, in Des Moines, Iowa, to unknown parents. When he was still very young, he was adopted by Merlin and Ione Spangler. They raised him in Ames, Iowa, where Merlin, a civil engineer, had a laboratory named after him at Iowa State University. Not much is known about Robert's childhood and teenage years. There was a rumor that he may have been involved in the death of a classmate he didn't like in 1944, but nothing came of that suspicion. Later on, in high school, Robert became the star player of his high school's football team. He graduated in 1951, then went on to enroll at Iowa State University. In 1955, he graduated university with a degree in technical journalism. Sometime in the same year, Robert married his high school girlfriend, Nancy Stallman. The pair packed up and moved to Littleton, Colorado, to start the next chapter of their lives. Nancy was happier than ever, and things seemed good for the Spanglers. They welcomed their son David in 1961 and their daughter Susan in 1963. Life was progressing as one would expect for an average American family. By 1976, Robert was working at the American Water Works Company. Here, he met Sharon Cooper. The pair wasted no time starting an affair. Robert excused his actions because he and Nancy were having problems in their marriage, and he was unhappy. Sometime in 1978, Robert and Nancy separated, and he moved in with Sharon. This arrangement went on for a few months until Robert moved back in with his family in October. Unbeknownst to them, they experienced what would be their last Thanksgiving and Christmas as a family that year. For three of them, their last Thanksgiving and Christmas ever. On the morning of December 30th, Timothy Trevithick stopped by the Spangler home to visit his girlfriend, 15-year-old Susan. He knocked on the front door, but no one answered. Timothy knew Susan and her brother David were home, so he tried again. When he still didn't get an answer, he went around the house to check the doors, finding all of them locked. Timothy found an open basement window and let himself inside. He went upstairs to his girlfriend's room to surprise her. At first, he thought she was still asleep, but when he got closer, he realized something wasn't right. He discovered that Susan was dead, shot once in the back and slumped over in her bed. David fared no better. He was also dead in his room, but a struggle had occurred. David had fallen from his bed, his head and shoulders touching the floor while his legs remained on the mattress. Timothy called the police. When they arrived and swept the house, they found Nancy dead in the basement. She was slumped over a typewriter, a single gunshot wound high on her forehead. A suicide note was on the typewriter, signed only with her first initial. Susan, David, and Nancy had all been shot with Robert's .38 Smith & Wesson, which was found on the floor 5 feet away from Nancy. A step stool was left in front of the closet where Robert kept the gun at the back of the top shelf. Robert didn't come home until after the bodies were found, claiming he had been at the movies. Seemingly the grieving husband and father he ought to be, he spoke with the police. Robert informed them that he and Nancy had been separated for 9 months, but had been trying to reconcile. Wanting to seem as cooperative as possible, he agreed to a polygraph test. Police took Robert in for questioning, but his story kept changing. First, he went out to the movies and came home to find the police at his home. Somehow, it changed to Robert coming home to find the bodies, only to leave them there while he went to the movies. He claimed he needed a chance to process everything and would call the police once he got home. Robert was given 2 separate polygraph tests. Both examiners had to rule the tests inconclusive because Robert was nervous and hyperventilated during both tests, ruining the results. Interviewing Robert was just one part of the investigation. Physical evidence was also being collected. Oddly, Nancy's hands did not test positive for gunshot residue, but Robert's did. When the typewriter was dusted for fingerprints, they only found obvious wipe marks. During Nancy's autopsy, the coroner determined her wound was sustained at immediate range, meaning a distance of 2 to 8 inches from her head. The majority of gunshot suicides are contact wounds, as people typically press the muzzle of the gun to their skin. The range of the shot was odd enough, but Nancy also had a neurological disorder that caused weak and unsteady hands. It was questioned whether she could have even pulled the trigger of the gun so far from her head. It was also known that Nancy was afraid of guns. As soon as he was able, Robert had the bodies of Nancy, Susan, and David cremated and played the role of bereaved husband and father well. On January 3, 1979, the Arapahoe County coroner determined the deaths were murder-suicide and closed the case. Unfortunately, none of the evidence collected by the sheriff's office was strong enough to contend with the coroner's findings. They were forced to comply, and most of the pieces of evidence were destroyed or returned to Robert. Just 7 months later, Robert married Sharon and moved into the house where his family had been murdered. Despite this macabre choice, things seemed good between them. Both Robert and Sharon shared an interest in hiking, but when Sharon wrote a book on her experiences hiking in the Grand Canyon, problems started cropping up in their relationship. In 1986, Robert went to visit his 92-year-old father, Merlin. During the visit, Merlin experienced a terrible fall. Despite having been in perfect health beforehand, he sadly passed 2 weeks later. He left a substantial amount of money to Robert, which allowed him to retire. Sharon had no problems with Robert before the accident, but when he returned home, she started to fear him. In December 1987, she ended up calling the police on him. He ran and hid in a grocery store until officers picked him up. The pair would inevitably divorce, which was finalized on June 14, 1988. Robert was made to pay Sharon a sum of $150,000 plus $500 a month for 3 years, followed by $400 a month for 7 years after that. Not content to remain single, Robert started putting out personal ads after the divorce. It wasn't long before Donna Sundling answered the ads. They got married on August 18, 1990, and moved into a new house in Durango, Colorado. With spousal support to pay and a new wife, Robert got a job as a morning personality on a country music radio station. His charisma and charm led him to gaining popularity quickly. Donna wasn't a sedentary housewife, though. She was an active aerobics instructor with 5 adult children and a handful of grandchildren. Even though she was an active woman, she didn't share Robert's enthusiasm for hiking. She had a fear of heights, and many of the trails her husband enjoyed had plenty of high cliffs and ledges. Robert didn't like this, and it put a rift in their marriage. In April 1993, Robert and Donna went backpacking in the Grand Canyon in hopes of saving their marriage. Donna was reluctant to go on the trip, but wanted to make things work with Robert. On April 11th, Robert showed up at a ranger station, bedraggled but calm. He informed the ranger that his wife had fallen to her death. He claimed they stopped to take a picture together, but when he turned around, Donna was gone. Her body was found 160 feet below the trail. An autopsy was performed on Donna, and it was found that she had a massive amount of injuries. She sustained abrasions, contusions, lacerations, and multiple fractures of the neck, chest, and lower extremities. Her death was eventually ruled an accident, leaving Robert to once again play the grieving husband. In the aftermath, he went on multiple television shows nationwide to discuss the dangers of hiking in the Grand Canyon. And yet, he continued to hike those very same trails with a variety of different partners. After Donna's death, Robert and Sharon reconnected. In July 1994, she came to stay in his guest room during a rough patch in her life. She was mourning the passing of her dog and grieving the broken relationship she had with a previous boyfriend. This arrangement lasted until October 2nd, when Robert came home to find Sharon unresponsive next to a bottle of Tylenol. He took her to the emergency room and remained by her side until she died later that same day. Sharon's death was ruled a drug overdose, and Robert was never charged. He later received a $20,000 inheritance from Sharon's insurance. In August of the following year, investigators Paul Goodman and Bev Perry began to work together investigating Donna's accident. Robert was put back on the radar of investigators when police questioned him after Sharon's overdose. In 1998, Robert quit his radio job, sold his house, and moved to Pennsylvania. He was pursuing a new woman whom he met over the internet. The relationship never progressed, however, as Robert's intensity scared her off. Between 1998 and 2000, the FBI and the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crimes, or NCAVC, were continuing their investigation into Robert. They perform a complete history on him and question some of his associates using an NCAVC behavioral assessment questionnaire. This told them how everyone considered Robert to be an intelligent, charming, and successful man. The agencies learned that Robert continued to make frequent trips to the Grand Canyon and put him under surveillance. He had no idea he was being watched and continued his life as normal. He moved to Grand Junction, Colorado, where he got a job as the vice president of the Applecrest Irrigation Company and took up theater as a hobby. He also met Judy Hilty. Robert learned that he had inoperable lung cancer in August 2000, and it had spread to his brain. This made him put a rush on his new relationship, and he married Judy less than a month later. Worried for Judy's life, investigators increased their own efforts. They brought Robert in for questioning on September 15th. Several agencies were involved, including the FBI, National Park Service, an Assistant U.S. Attorney, NCAVC, and Arapahoe County. They confronted Robert about the 1978 murders of his first wife and children, the overdose of his second wife, and his third wife's accident. He told them, "You're naming one too many, remember." After the first interview concluded, Robert was dismissed. He agreed to contact investigators in the morning if he wanted to continue. To everyone's surprise, he did exactly that. During the second interview, he detailed the murders of Nancy, Susan, and David, including how he had to smother his son because the shot wasn't lethal. As Robert recounted the deaths he was involved in, he denied any involvement in Sharon's overdose. He also refused to discuss Donna's death at first, fearing that her adult children would file a lawsuit against him. Investigators got him to talk about his third wife even after his refusal. They told him that only serial killers are questioned by profilers, but killing multiple people at once didn't make him a serial killer. Robert was quiet for a while before telling investigators, "You've got your serial." He then told them how he had pushed Donna off the cliff. Following his confessions, Robert asked the FBI to minimize the publicity surrounding his case. He claimed this was because he wasn't like other serial killers who targeted people for their race or sexual orientation. To him, murder was just easier than divorce, and cheaper. The joint investigation ended in Robert confessing to 4 murders. Due to Donna's death taking place on federal land, he would have his trial in federal court. Despite his full confession during the interviews, Robert pled not guilty on November 5, 2000. He claimed his brain cancer made him confess to things he had never done. Robert eventually signed a plea deal to serve a life sentence for the murder of Donna Sundling. He never even served 1 full year in prison. Robert Spangler died of cancer at 3:15 a.m. on August 5, 2001, in the Federal Corrections Medical Center in Springfield, Missouri. To those who knew him, Robert was a charming, well-liked man. Behind the scenes, he was petulant and selfish, deciding things always had to go his way. If something didn't go as he wanted, it was too hard and not worth dealing with. He was content to throw away relationships and dispose of people like trash. Sure, he wasn't like most serial killers, but someone who has an easier time murdering their family because divorce was too hard and too expensive seems to show signs of some kind of antisocial personality disorder. It just isn't as obvious as those who kill for no other reason than because they can.